I feel like this is a thing that does not get talked about enough, and that is learning how to disqualify particular customers as well as look for red flags. If you've been around this type of work for a long time, creative entrepreneurship, videography, you are going to encounter some people that are going to approach you with some serious red flags. And it's extremely important to understand what you're looking for and learn how to identify them. Now, these are just standard rules, right? Like there's going to be times where it's not always the case, or there's exceptions, or it may look like a red flag, but it's really just, the person being quirky, or that's just kind of the way they operate. But for the most part, these are red flags that I've learned to identify. The first one is a person that is hiring you that clearly doesn't trust you. In other words, they're paying you their money, but they're not trusting you to do your job. They're not trusting you to actually, come into the project and deliver your expertise. That's a huge red flag. The biggest reason why is because at the end of it, when you get all done, and if something doesn't work, or something is not to their satisfaction because that's what they wanted you to do, who do you think is going to be blamed? You're going to be blamed for that. I can think of a clear scenario right now. I mean, this has happened to me several times throughout my career. But I remember just not too long ago actually working with a client on a project. And this client was one of those like client/director clients. Like he's a client, but he also feels like he's the director. He feels like he knows how to make films and movie. Never made one a day in his life. Maybe he owns a Sony camera or something that he uses for family photos. But like he's not a cinematographer. He's not a filmmaker. He's not a storyteller, but he thinks he is. And this organization was a large organization, and we had several other projects going on at the same time. And so I kind of felt compelled, like, hey, listen, this is somebody that is high in this company, and I want to just be flexible to preserve the relationship of all the other things that we're doing, which were a lot of things that he wasn't even a part of. And so this one thing I already knew coming into it, hey, I'm going to have to give this guy some creative control. But I already know where this is kind of going. So I tried to put some parameters up front. Obviously, I did a decent job, but still, whenever this is part of the problem when you allow somebody to be a client and a director at the same time. There was definitely some issues that came up. There was multiple cases where the work needed to be done 3 or 4 times because I was following his instruction. I made my suggestion. I don't think that's a good idea. Okay, you want to do this? I did it. And then, of course, the board or whatever is like, no, we don't like that. We want to change this. And so it just becomes one of those scenarios where you're doing a lot of unnecessary work. And I would say this, that's a huge red flag. Only do it if there's another reason why you're doing it. For example, I was trying to preserve the relationship. It wasn't an ongoing, it was only a one project thing. I had a whole nother situation set up with that company. And so it was kind of one of those hits that I felt like I just needed to take, do my best to set the expectation. And ultimately, even though it was a little excessive and annoying at times, ultimately we got through it. And I think that we both learned. But those are situations that you need to be aware of when you're talking with a client, maybe for the first time, and you can already tell, like, okay, this person thinks that they're the director. That's a red flag. You need to set expectations and you need to watch out for that.